One person who knows how to help you channel your health into a life well lived is my guest, Dr. Alison K. She's an international best-selling author, in addition to being a master mind-body energy medicine practitioner for more than 20 years. Alison is the founder of the Vibrational Upgrade System and author of several books, including the award-winning What If Nothing's Wrong? Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Alison.
Hi, that was What If There's Nothing Wrong? That was my first book. I'm glad to be here, hearing your intro. It's such a great alignment. There's so much I could speak to.
Well, so Alison, I understand that you tell me if this is true, that you combined your knowledge of energy practices and created a vibrational upgrade system. So can you explain, is that right? Can you tell me what it's about?
Sure. And it's funny too, because I used to have, this is such a great example. I used to have a judgment, a conclusion of Westerners who created a system based on stuff that came from the East. And then I went and did it. So that's interesting, isn't it? The way the ego mind works. So, Vibrational Upgrade System takes everything I've learned basically and from the basic premise of how can I get even more robust results for my clients, including the decade in Asia, doing all the research and learning that I did. And is that, so it's a combination of, it's like half energy medicine and half work with consciousness. So it seems like what I'm doing is speeding up the I say it seems like because the feedback I get from my people going through my trainings and what I observe is it's speeding up the process. So you could meditate daily for half an hour for decades. And I've even said to some of my students, like, my God, it took me 5 years of meditation to get to that point that they've gone to through my vibration upgrade system, like within 2 years. So the intention has been met to speed up and get more robust results to my clients. It's a way to speed up your spiritual evolution. And also, I mean, yes, I don't ever refer to myself as an energy healer. While Alison J K. That's why you have to put my name in Amazon, by the way, because there's another Alison K there. So make sure you have the middle initial, anyone, J. And it's the same on Facebook business page. When I first got back, it was what seemed the best. I put energy healer, and I don't ever use it ever since then. And so I consider it about living up to our potential. I don't consider energy medicine only about a desperate Westerner who's tried Western medicine and can't resolve their health issue and then seeks out alternative medicine, and energy medicine may be a part of it. To me, like, I remember I was on an interview, Debbie, giving an interview on a radio show in 2011-ish. And I remember the interviewer, he was a male, and he was saying to me, isn't this stuff all just woo-woo? And my worst culture shock was not any of the other cultures I went, extremely opposite cultures I went and lived in. It was coming back to the States. And that's frequently the case for expats, especially who've lived away for an extended amount of time. And when he said that to me, isn't this all just woo-woo, said/asked, I found myself genuinely saying, I find that at this stage of life and evolution, when over half the rest of the world lives from the understanding that what is invisible is more important and it comes first and the physical or matter comes second, to dismiss all of this as woo-woo, it's just ignorant at this point. And I've not looked back from that. So energy medicine, I use the clearings and activations to help clear out all the conditioning, all the imprints, all the traumas. I'm pointing to the back of the head because I call it back of the house consciousness, because the thoughts that we do actually hear make up at most 15% of what's here to be worked with. The unconscious and subconscious make up at least 85%. And from what I see, it's more like 95%. So when we're learning to drive, we'll say, put car in brake, put car in reverse, put foot on brake, put foot on gas, right? Like you say that out loud, or you say it to yourself in your head when you're learning to drive, right? Well, okay, so when we have learned how to drive, then it goes back there. And when we hop in our car, we don't say any of that. We don't hear any of that. So we're making at least 85% to 90%. And I think it's more from what I've seen working with the tens of thousands of people at this point with this work, that all of our daily choices are made from the back of the house consciousness, except for maybe 5 to 10% not the full 15% that science has come out with a guesstimate when studying this. Meaning, our daily choices and how we live our life are mostly robotic. We're not even hearing the thoughts that make those choices. Meaning, if I choose to rent rather than have a mortgage, that's from conditioning, that's from imprints, that's from not conscious thought necessarily being applied to it. If I want to start, I give this example a lot. If I want to, because it's very relatable, let's say um, you're a female and you have the bad boy, you're a single female and you're looking for love and you have a bad boy complex and you're wanting to break the bad boy complex. You go to a party, and at the party, there's this really great, sensitive guy over here, really kind, compassionate guy over here. And all you see is the bad boy over there, because your peripheral vision to what else is possible is locked down because you haven't attended to the back of the house consciousness. You're making unconscious choices. Un is not conscious. Prefix sub means under conscious mind. So I do a ton of work to bring that forward. And once that I do these clearings and activations on all of this stuff, including karma, including past life stuff, because I access them through the chakras, which is an intersection of the mind, the body, and the spirit. So I can get to all of this, all the levels of consciousness of the mind. The spirit aspect allows me to go into karma and past life stuff. And the body is, well, every chakra relates to a region of the body, as it does a domain of life, or a kind of topic of life, so to speak. Um, Without going further into the chakras in this moment, I can address all different aspects of life through the clearings and activations, and it frees up more chi or vital life force energy or consciousness, so that my choices then become more conscious. So I then the other half is applied mindfulness, which I've learned from my meditation and yoga teacher background and myself being a meditator and yoga practitioner. So it's not mindfulness like, let me eat this apple with mindfulness and presence, yummy, juicy. Ooh, it's not that kind of simplified mindfulness, beginner mindfulness. It's applied mindfulness. So I've cleared out my belief that men are rough and tough, and that's the and alpha males are going to give me better babies conditioning. And instead, I'm now more open. But how do I actually have the courage to break that pattern when I'm at the next party, and go to that more sensitive guy and even allow myself to go on a date with him? All of that new choice making comes from the fifth chakra, but it is the applied mindfulness I'm talking about, to go off of old neurological patterns, create new neurological patterns with the new choices that then lead to new behavioral patterns.
Mhm. I love that, and I really was
Thanks.
very attuned to what you were saying about you know our not living, you know,
Yep.
that
To our
15
full potential.
5%, whatever it is, I'm living unconsciously. It's one of the reasons why, I've embraced dream work,
I
because it
bet.
helps give us access to everything that's there that we're not even aware of, and brings that unconscious or subconscious out to the conscious level, and where we're more attuned, we're more trained to deal with it than we are, unless you go through all of your trainings to understand all of that. The one thing, when you talked about that man who dismissed everything as woo woo, it brings to mind to me that the whole idea of what stops a lot of people from embracing concepts like this is the ego, which puts a big stop to things. So, how do we stop the ego and free ourselves to embrace all of these kinds of trainings, modalities that you know?
Big question you're asking, Debbie. It's the whole reason why meditation was created. The whole reason why yoga was, or much of the reason why yoga was created. So the traditional yogic path has 8 limbs, what's known as 8 limbs, and only one of them is about body postures or the asanas you do in a yoga class. 5 of them are about working with the mind and consciousness, the ego mind.
Mhm.
So to me, it's a neat little trick. And I go into this a lot in my third book, Reasonable Dragons. It's my only book that's on audible.com, and people have been loving it. And so I speak about it, not to promote it only, but also to the concepts that are in Reasonable Dragons. The idea of it's almost like it's a hidden trick by the universe. So I say this so much that I had another podcast interviewer tell me, get it on a t-shirt, Allison. um, our minds typically interpret things the exact opposite that the divine or the soul or the universe means, however you want to construe it. The soul is different than the universe. However, I want to point that out. So what that means is that I really went into initiations in Reasonable Dragons because it seems like if you're going to be entrusted with the power to create based on your desires, you bet your sweet bottom that there's going to be purification that has to happen in order to be given that more access to that power. You're not going to be given that access. We all have it by default, and we're all creating by default, right? And so if we're from, it's like a neat trick in order to entice people into spiritual development. But you can't hear this stuff, like you said, if you're coming from ego. So, what I've seen, Debbie, that's really interesting is that a lot of people require crisis, whether it's a physical health issue that makes them go into this work, and then all of a sudden they find themselves in some kind of spiritual path and they never intended to, and they're opening up to living beyond the ego, or they have a financial crisis or a relationship crisis, and it causes them to have, and it's nothing like midlife crisis at all. At any age, it's happening. It causes them to look beyond the ego typical habits and what it typically turns to. And it's a really fascinating phenomena to me because I've been asking the question, like, I don't do fear-based marketing. I do what my business coaches finally said, it's inspirational marketing. In great part because of what I learned when studying the conditioning advertising and marketing creates for all of us. And that's not what I'm about. I'm not about building more fear. I'm about breaking free. And so it's really fascinating to me, like even COVID, how long it lasted, and still lasting, like what people need in order to deal with themselves instead of all of the people who are doing it proactively because they want to learn more about the universe and its mystical magical happenings and wonderings, from inspiration and from joy and from understanding that if I follow my heart, if I follow what is light, what makes my heart uplift, if I make a choice based on that thing that's being presented to me that causes my heart to uplift, that means that thing is going to help my heart uplift instead of making choices that are either that robotic automated living or the heavy choices where it's based on obligation or it's based on like when it's heavy, it's just not going to lead to anything different than the heavy, and the ego tends to be heavy.
Mhm. Well, I tell you, I would love to talk about this more, but we are out of time. So I just have one final question for you, Allison, which is how can people find out more about you and your services?
Go to vibrationalupgrade.com. That's my website. And then Allison with one L, JKAY.com is also another way to go there, as well as to Amazon. You can find my books there.